Support for WUWM podcast comes from Hop Harvest and Vine and Good Harvest Market in Pewaukee, part of One Destination, combining farm-to-table dining, local craft beers, and organic groceries under one roof. More at goodharvestmarket.com.
Lake Effect brings you conversations about what's happening in Milwaukee and the people, places, and organizations that shape the community. This is Lake Effect Spotlight from WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR.
During the holiday season, picking out a live Christmas tree is a tradition for many families. But according to a survey from the American Christmas Tree Association, more than 80% of households will opt for a fake tree. So, which is better for the environment? Cutting a new tree every year or reusing a fake one? I'm joined by Stefan Schnitzer, a professor of ecology at Marquette University, to find out. So when it comes to Christmas trees and other evergreen decorations for the winter season, which is better for the environment, a real or a fake tree?
The choice of whether to get an artificial tree or a real tree, if you're a Wisconsin resident in particular, is easy if you're thinking about the environment. It's a real tree. Getting a real tree is good for the environment. You're supporting tree farms. They're planting lots of trees, which are pulling carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. And it's a sustainable resource. We cut them down every year, but they're replanting 3 or 4 to each one they cut down. And so they have a stock of trees that are growing each year. And so that is definitely the environmental choice. The artificial tree, on the other hand, is made from petroleum and metal, basically. They have a metal spine, and plastic is made out of petroleum. It goes into the landfill when you eventually throw it away, and you can't recycle it. It's unrecyclable. Whereas the real tree, you can compost that. And the city has a compost program, and they'll come to your curb and collect your tree.
Now, before we get into some of the details of disposing of our trees properly, you mentioned the plastic trees, and the word is right in the title, right? Fake Christmas tree. In addition to what it's made of, what other factors contribute to these trees being bad for the environment?
Well, almost all of the artificial trees that we buy are made in China. So they have to be shipped across the ocean and then trucked to the store where you purchased it. So that's a big environmental cost. And the local trees also have to be shipped to a lot, or you have to drive up to a Christmas tree farm, but it's a lot closer. It's less of an impact.
Yeah, let's get into how local harvesting works. So say there is a lot, so we're here in Milwaukee, so say there's a Christmas tree sale at your local church parking lot, a few weekends leading up to Christmas. How does this ecosystem work? How does harvesting a Christmas tree support local forests and local businesses?
Well, there is a lot of Christmas tree farms in Wisconsin. So if we were in a different state, we may be having a slightly different conversation. But in Wisconsin, there's a lot of Christmas tree farms. These are nice local businesses. They're planting trees. It's good for the environment. It's good for wildlife. And they're harvesting part of their Christmas tree crop, and they're bringing them to sell at lots. Or they offer a cut your own tree, or you can go there and they'll cut it for you. And so it's a local business that's nice to support because it's very ecological and environmental.
You mentioned about 3 trees are planted for every 1 cut down. What is the typical land management style that tree farms follow? Are there any other practices that make it the best choice, or is pretty well established that this is good for not just their business, but for the land that they're working on?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm sure that different tree farms use slightly different techniques on how many they plant and how many they maintain. They don't want them to get too big, otherwise it just becomes a forest, right? They can't really use those trees for their business. But they're planting extra trees because some of the trees may get sick, or some of the trees may die, or they just may need a gradient of tree sizes. They want some small ones, they want some medium ones, and they want some big ones. But having a real tree that you cut versus an artificial tree aren't the only 2 choices. There are also trees, smaller trees in pots that some people purchase, and then they plant them in their neighbor's yard in the middle of the night. No, I'm kidding about that. You can then plant those trees afterwards if you have land or if you have a place where it's allowable to plant trees.
And with Wisconsin being such a good state for local tree farms, are there any biodiversity concerns when it comes to all the evergreens and types of evergreens that are planted here, or is our state pretty hospitable and habitable for these kind of breeds?
Yeah, it's a very good question, Audrey. It's hard to answer. Yes, it's not good to plant monoculture plantations. And so that's not ideal, but it's better than an old field, right? I mean, you're still adding trees to the environment. You're still supporting wildlife. A diverse forest would be better. That's without question. But in contrast to agriculture, Christmas tree farms are a plus for the environment. They're not the ideal, but they're still a plus.
Yeah, still a natural ecosystem taking up land versus a business or something else in an empty field.
Yeah, and they're not clearing extensively. They're planting the trees, they're giving them a little room and letting them grow, and the trees are fine. And so they don't have to manage every little piece of the land around the tree. So you have some natural regeneration coming up around the trees, just as long as the trees are getting light and growing.
What is the next step when we're ready to dispose of a natural tree?
Well, when you're ready to dispose of a natural tree, you have to remove all of the ornaments and decoration, and then you can call the city and you put the tree by the curb and you call the city. Their number is 414-286-CITY, and you tell them that you would like to have a tree picked up, and they'll come and pick it up. And what they do with these trees is they shred them and compost them, and then people can use the wood chips or eventually the soil. But that's only up until January 31st. So the city composts and recycle these trees from December 26th until January 31st.
But say, you don't necessarily want it to be mulched and composted. Are there any other nice alternatives for people who want to just simply have their tree but in an outdoor space? Is there a benefit to letting it just, say, be outside in your own yard?
Oh, sure. You can plant these trees. So when you cut a tree, basically, when you bring your Christmas tree home, a live tree, you'll want to recut the stem and then put it in water right away. That will help the tree absorb water. You have a little stand that you have to buy for the tree. You fill it with water. The tree actually will move a lot of water, so you have to water these things every day or every other day if they're inside. It's usually very dry, so they're using a lot of water. And some of these you can plant, but most of them you're going to want to compost in some way. You can do that in your yard if you have enough room. Artificial trees, well, those you have to store in your basement. And if you have an artificial tree, which a lot of people do because they're cheaper over the long run, if you use an artificial tree for, I think that I've read anywhere from 5 to 10 years, well, then you're actually starting to reduce your environmental impact of that tree, right? So if you do have an artificial tree, you shouldn't immediately throw it away and start buying real trees. You can still use it. The best thing to do is to keep using it year after year after year until it no longer functions, and then you can throw it away. And I would suggest buying a real tree, but there are some drawbacks to having real trees. They're a bit more expensive. They need water. They need water a lot, and you have to be very careful with those trees because if they do dry up, they can be a fire hazard. So you have to be careful, but they are certainly the more environmental option.
Especially here in Wisconsin.
That's right. That's right. Especially here in Wisconsin when we have a lot of tree farms.
Well, Stefan, I really appreciate you taking the time to explain the benefits of real versus fake trees.
It's my pleasure.
Stefan Schnitzer is the Director of Environmental Studies and Environmental Science at Marquette University. When you're ready to recycle your Christmas tree, you can arrange a collection by calling 414-286-CITY. You can also do it in the MKE Mobile Action app. Collection starts on December 26th and runs through January 31st of next year.
You can find more interviews like this one by visiting wuwm.com/Lake Effect. And while you're there, subscribe to the Lake Effect Spotlight podcast.